Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Daryl Urbanski, your host as always. And today we are joined by Catherine Miss Cat Mitchell. Catherine is a strategic business leader specializing in operations, financial services, and scalable growth. As CEO of Miss Cat Consulting, she helps entrepreneurs streamline systems, strengthen their brands, and build sustainable success. She's also the founder of Flat Fee Tax Software, empowering professionals through practical education, mentorship, and real-world financial clarity. Known for her calm structure, sharp insight, and results-driven approach, Miss Cat transforms complexity into confidence and ideas into growth. I've asked her to join us here today to share her story and insights into financial education as it pertains to small business growth. So, Miss Cat, thanks so much for joining us. Catherine, how you doing?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, good to be here. So I'm curious to know a bit of your background. I mean, I said this last time, I didn't expect you to be, the owner of a successful tax software brand. It just threw me off a little bit, but not in a bad way, but it's just like a pleasant surprise. So I'm just curious, like, where and how does that happen? Were your parents
No,
entrepreneurs? Were they in tax?
no. So, great question. I didn't even aspire to be an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurship was not something that I wanted to get into or be. I actually had a corporate job. So here in Houston, Texas, I ran and managed the largest apartment complex in Houston. It's 1,500 units. At the time, it was called Broadway Square. That was 10 years ago. And what happened is that the property got sold, and the new owners, they decided that they wanted to fire everybody because they already had their own staff.
Right.
So everybody got fired. And at that time, I was making about six figures. So 10 years ago, that was a nice lifestyle. Right. And once I got fired from that position, I made a decision within myself that I no longer wanted to let anybody have control over my
you.
lifestyle and
Yeah.
me. Exactly.
Yeah.
So as a lot of people, especially someone like myself who didn't have entrepreneurship in me, I had to find my way. So at first I started a production company because I do love film. I love, those type of things. So I started a production company, but what I realized is I became a starving artist very quickly. And so that was no fun. And so I had a colleague of mine that basically was just like, hey, I'm about to start my own tax firm. Would you be willing? I know that you have more time on your hands. Would you be willing to help me get it started? So I was like, well, I don't know anything, about taxes. Like, what? Like, you know what I'm saying? But she took me under her wing, taught me everything that she knew. And ironically, it's not as complex as one may think, especially depending on what type of demographic you serve. So, if you're not trying to do major corporations or big accounting and things of that nature, tax prep is really data entry more than anything. So with that being said, I started doing taxes, but although I was making some good money, it just became robotic. It became redundant. It just wasn't, the thrill just wasn't there after a couple of years. So I like supporting and helping other people start their tax firms, but I just didn't like doing taxes anymore. And so that's how I actually started the software company, because that was a way that I could mentor, coach, but then it also made sense for me because when people buy the software, then I make money from that too. So that's how the software side came into play.
And how did you get into software? Like that's, are you, because I asked you before this in the pre-call and I'm like, you don't seem like a coder. And you're like, oh, I don't write the code. And so it's just like,
so it's 2025. You know what I'm saying? There's AI. Nobody, you can have your own app nowadays. I mean, there's white labeling and there's so much availability now with those type of things. So with that being said, to be clear and frank, no, I'm not a coder. I just have a team of individuals who assist me. And yes, we just do what we do.
Because I think you started it in 2019. So AI wasn't around then. It's pretty savvy to get in. Because in business, it's always about solving a problem. I mean, I'm speaking to the choir here, but it's always about solving a problem for someone. And then it's trying to deliver that solution as cheap as you can while maintaining quality. And software is a phenomenal industry because essentially your cost of goods is your overhead plus like a login.
For
That's
sure.
it. So it's a great business model to get into, and hats off to you for that. So it was just like, I'm going to make this thing a software tool, and the pearly gates opened up, the clouds parted, and money started raining from the heavens.
Look, I won't say that it's been rainbows, peaches, and butterflies, but it's not, like you said, it is a great business model, especially if you want to stay in the industry and not necessarily do taxes per se. And like I said, I have really embraced the whole coaching and mentorship and teaching people the game. So I think for me, I just want to be that person that I needed when I started and wanted to be great. You know what I mean? That's pretty much the inspiration and how it started. But like I said, regardless if it's AI or whatever, when you have a plan and it's something that you want to achieve, you just find the tools and the resources to make it happen.
Right. So what would you recommend to someone who's starting out or struggling right now?
For me, what I would just suggest is that you definitely get a mentor or a coach, somebody who's been there, done that, or someone who is where you want to be. I think a lot of times people think that they can TikTok it or YouTube University. But, at the end of the day, there's just some things that blood, sweat, and tears, you can't put that on a video, right? So if you're struggling or if you're trying to figure something out, I think that partnering up with a coach or mentor, someone that's in the industry or doing what you want to do, just highly advocate for that.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I think it's an easy analogy to say if you had two people that want to go win a gold medal at the Olympics, pick a sport. I always say judo, but it doesn't matter. And one is like, hey, I'm just going to watch some TikTok videos, some YouTube videos, get some books and figure it out in my garage with my buddy. And the other person goes, I'm going to go find 3 people that won gold medals at the Olympics in judo, and I'm going to get them to mentor me. It just is night and day. People just get it. But when it comes to
For
something
sure.
else like business or marketing or sales or their finance, it's just not need to invest in that. I'll just watch some YouTube videos. Something as important, how you plan to feed yourself, your babies, pay medical bills for your parents, retire. I got so mad in we just talked about 2019. I remember in 2020, I did some workshops. I was in Vietnam. I was traveling. I was a digital nomad, right? I was in Vietnam traveling and working. And a buddy of mine was working for Mind Valley. It's like $100 million company out of Malaysia. He was the copywriter for them. And we got introduced. And instead of like, hey, let's meet up for drinks or coffee, like, hey, you guys should meet. You're in the same area. We just thought, let's put on a workshop. Like, we never met in person, none of this stuff, but we just connected, chat online. We're like, yeah, let's do a workshop. It'll be shits and giggles. Why not? So we did this workshop. We put maybe 30, 40 people in a room. It was like $50, $150, something like that. We did a 1-day workshop and it was great. We recorded the whole thing. I had a camera crew and we thought maybe we'll make a course of this. And it turned out he was going to be in Saigon a couple months later and I was going to be in Saigon. We're like, hey, let's do it again. And so we started trying to do it and he had an emergency come up, couldn't make it last minute. I decided to do the event anyway. And the offer was, if you're not happy by lunch, let us know. We'll give you a refund. And this dude came, stayed the whole day, and then afterwards kept us back an hour because I was cleaning up and stuff. My daughter's like 1-year-old at the time running around the space that we're in. But his mind is blown because my now wife, then girlfriend, she's a Filipina. She's like a fresh university graduate. She's doing 6-figure business, 4-hour work week, stay-at-home mom, breastfeeding, doing what this guy from the UK can't do himself to be able to get out of Vietnam and go back to the UK because he couldn't go back home because he wasn't making enough as an English teacher in Vietnam. He couldn't afford like first and last month's rent, and the ticket. And he couldn't make enough as a side hustle doing what she was doing with like her eyes closed. And his mind was blown. And so she's like picking his brain. And after all this, he hits me up and goes, man, I need that refund. I need it to pay my rent. And I was like, what? He's like, yeah, if you don't, I'm not going to be able to make my rent this month. And I was like, bro. And whatever. Okay, here you go. And then 2 months later, I see this guy posting in Facebook groups. He's putting on this manifest the business of your dreams workshop. And I was so livid at this guy because I knew his story. So you're talking about the weekend gurus. Like I got my $1,000 2-day certification. You can bet your life on me, your ability to, to stay. It just frustrates me. So the analogy, bringing it back to that, get a mentor, I think is incredibly powerful. What are some of the biggest mistakes that you see clients and entrepreneurs making when you work with them?
Well, that's actually a great question as well, because a lot of times I think it's the formation of their business. Most people, surprisingly, don't even have a business. A lot of people have concepts that they haven't formalized and actually made into legitimate companies. It's shocking how many people don't have bank accounts for their business. It's shocking how many Gmail accounts I see. So I think the biggest mistake is walking around saying that you're a business or a brand and haven't done any of the formalities to make it a legit thing.
Mm,
And then you mentioned, the coaching and mentorship. I think another mistake that people do is they go with the virality. They look at the virality metrics rather than the testimonials or the people that actually, have utilized that service. Everybody wants to do what's hot or what the Joneses are doing, right? But at the end of the day, just because that person is looking rich on social media, that doesn't mean that they're the
yeah,
best, coach or the next guru, right? That you
yeah.
should follow after. So just to answer your question, like I said, just being a actual business before you try to conduct business. And then if you're going to look for a coach and mentor, just make sure that they're actually creditable and not just talking the talk, but actually walking the walk.
Yeah, you reminded me of a quote one of my mentors said. He said, "If you treat your business like a hobby, it'll pay you like a hobby. If you treat your business like a business, it'll pay you like a business." And so you're talking about the formalities. Some of that stuff is not glamorous. Like it's not glamorous, it's not fancy, but it's what you got to do. I love that you mentioned focusing on. You did the contrast of focusing on trending versus the testimonials and the people. Can you dive into that more? What do you mean by that?
Because we are unfortunately in a social media age. So when people want to connect with you, the first thing I know in my demographic, a lot of times, well, what's your Instagram? What's your Facebook? They're looking to see, oh, does she have followers? Does she have whatever? So again, I think that people strive for the vanity metrics versus, oh, I'm not credible if I don't have 10,000 followers, or I'm not credible if I don't have 20,000 followers. So that's what I mean. Like people look at the numbers rather than how many people has this person actually changed their lives? How many people have took this course and can attest that this course really
Yeah,
does what it says that it's going to do?
yeah,
For whatever reason, it just seems like in most people's mind, it just stops at that vanity metric. And a lot of times people don't do the deeper dive, to
yeah,
see if this person is really legit or
yeah,
not, if that makes
yeah.
sense. So I just feel like because we're in that social media age, that is why that happens.
Yeah,
So
I get what you're saying. It's very interesting too. I mean, you can buy 10,000 followers, but then you have the issue where, I've known people they've got 1 million followers to their Facebook page, but their posts get 10 likes. And it's, what, so yeah, I get what you're saying. It's like some people take the shortcuts to decision making, and that's where it becomes a bit of a minefield. Like who do you trust? Because no one's sharing their tax returns. Even if they were sharing their tax returns, no one's being, you know, the goal of business is to pay as little tax as you can. Like so,
exactly.
right? Like, so it's just like who can you trust? And so I think, like you said, that becomes a vanity metric that people try to. There's Robert Cialdini had the six. He wrote this book, Influence. There was, I'm going to get these out of order, but it's likability, scarcity, commitment, consistency, authority, reciprocity, and social proof. So it becomes a short circuit. It's like if there's some guy and five girls are trying to date him, other girls go, "Hey, what's going on? There might be something here I don't know about." But at the end of the day, like you said, those aren't necessarily the real. Those aren't the real heroes. Those aren't the people that are actually making a difference in the world. There was a study that this guy did. He got 118 surveys answered by companies doing over than 100 million, asking where they spent their time. And 40% of their time, their marketing hours, are spent on organic social media. But when they asked what's driving revenue, organic social media only drove 2.3% of revenue. The major movers were like SEO, paid ads, email, text marketing, like collaborations with other people. Those are the major movers. But social media, organic social media on its own was like 2.3%. of revenue generated. So what do you think are some of the most important skills and behaviors for an entrepreneur and a business owner to have?
I think that first things first, you need to have a faith in something. I don't want to sound spiritual or whatever, however you want to put it, but you do definitely have to have faith in something, because this is not for the weak. Entrepreneurship, especially if you're doing it full time, this is not something that, like I said, you can just go on TikTok or YouTube and find a couple of self-help books. Like, you have to have something in you that keeps you going when the money isn't flowing. Okay.
Mhm.
So I think just some stick to itiveness, if that's a word. You definitely have to have some type of goal that you're aspiring to reach, because what happens is, if you don't have any goals, then when you hit certain milestones and you do certain things, then you don't take a moment to appreciate it and pat yourself on the back. You just start grinding and then burn yourself out. So you do have to, take a moment and say, you know what, I hit that milestone. Kudos to me. Because what you'll realize is, being an entrepreneur, it is lonely at the top, as sometimes people aren't going to circle back and pat you on the back and be like, yeah, you're doing such a great job. I see you running that business. Like, most people have to encourage themselves. So you have to be a self-motivator, a self-starter, especially when things are down, because it's not going to always be up. So what's going to help you get through things when you're down? So just being able to lean and depend on the Most High, right? And then, hopefully you have some type of support, a system, a team, somebody that you can tap into, just a solid infrastructure. And systems are also very helpful too. And if you can start them as soon as possible within your business, then it helps you as you grow and scale.
Can you talk about systems a bit more? What do you mean, for someone that just heard that? They're like, oh, they can help. What does that mean? That means I got to buy a software? What's happening?
No. So what that means is that you just definitely need to have some SOPs, some standard operating procedures, checklists, things of that nature. Start documenting from day one what your processes are. So that way, as you build a team and you try to grow, now you can explain to someone else, hey, this is the process on how we do that, right? Because it's hard to duplicate yourself if you can't explain to the next person, how to do that. And that's a lot of reasons why most of us stay as solopreneurs, because we haven't documented anything. We don't know how to describe it to someone else. We don't have anything in writing. So definitely those are some of the type of systems. Also, if you can get some kind of CRM in place, customer management system. My go-to, if we're talking software, I love Go High Level. So that's something that I've used time and time again in a couple of my entities, but just something where you can have your own database and have access to your own data. Because like I said, with us being in the social media age, I see a lot of people trying to transact and do things on social. And then I remember so very vividly when something happened, it was some kind of glitch or something happened in Facebook, and Facebook was shut down. It was like shut down for a day. Something happened, right? But people were freaking out because all their business, their transactions, everything is on social media. So
that's a bad idea.
So having your own database where you have your own client list and your own control would definitely be
huge. If anybody's listening to this that doesn't have that, it is a worthwhile investment for a couple of reasons. I remember I was working with a client in 2014. We grew their Facebook from 70,000 followers to 300,000, back when it meant something. We were getting like 2-3 million organic impressions a week. And then actually this is 2013, because on January 1st, 2014, Facebook introduced the boost post feature. And that meant that now we could pay to boost our posts, but our organic reach went from the millions to less than 1 million per week. And it was going to cost us over $1,000 per post to boost it, to have it full visibility. And so you don't want to build your house on someone else's property. That's a dangerous proposition. The other thing is, you can't take your Facebook followers with you anywhere else. They're on Facebook. And if you're trying to reach them all, you do a post, but your post is competing with your friend's grandmother passing away and somebody else's new baby boy or girl. And the wedding that's happening. But if you've got someone's email, if you have their phone number, the text messages is 3-meter media. When I worked in Tokyo, these guys, one of my clients, they call it 3-meter media because your phone is always within 3 meters of you. It has like a 90% open rate. If I have a text message, boom, I get to everybody. Email, I can email people to follow me on LinkedIn. I can email them to follow me on Facebook. I can upload the email list to LinkedIn and send them all invites. I can upload my contacts to Telegram and send them all an invite to add. Like, I can take them with me other places. And that is such a powerful thing that you said. And the other reason why it's so powerful as well is that people don't always buy when they're, people buy when they're ready to buy, not when you're ready to sell. So a story from my own martial arts school, this one guy came in, did the free classes, never paid me nothing, not a dime. 8 years later, I've been emailing the same list, just telling my story as my life evolves. I shut that business down. I moved. I did all these other things. He messages me, him and his partner in business, they want to hire me. They end up paying me 25 grand. 8 years later.
Wow, that's big.
But that's not, it took 8 years. So, I mean, if I was waiting on that one payment, that would have been a long time. But the idea is what you're saying is, build your following. It's just such a powerful thing that you said, like, build your following, but own it. Own your own media. I think it's a powerful lesson. And you talk about systems. So that is, for people listening to this, what's the quote that I heard? Don't expect others to understand your grind when God didn't give them your vision. And so everyone's going to be a beta version of you. And that's where these SOPs and checklists come into place, because no one else is going to care about your business as much as you do, but you don't scale. That's what she's trying to tell you. You don't scale. When you look up entrepreneur in the dictionary, it doesn't say the person who answers the phone, cleans the toilet, mops the floors, does the sales, delivers the service, does the taxes, blah, 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 blah. No. It says a person who organizes a business or businesses. And so you have to think about that. A great tip is the rule of 10,000. How would you handle 10,000 leads? How would you follow up with 10,000 prospects? How would you onboard 10,000 customers? How would you deliver? And that's a powerful, powerful lesson. So what she just said about systems, and you talked about the other thing that you said that I wanted to add in there was you talking about how lonely it is at the top as an entrepreneur. You just said so much great. I want to unpack it because I don't think it's easy for people to just blow over and be like, yeah. But some of what you said, it's like real. If they listen to it, it's powerful. You talked about as lonely at the top as an entrepreneur because you can't go ask your competitors if things go wrong. If you're a dry cleaner, you can't call the dry cleaner up the street, go, yo, my sales are down. What are you doing? They're not going to help you. And you don't want to tell your staff, yo, we're struggling. You better start looking for a job elsewhere.
But not just that, though. The people that know you as that regular person, like your friends and your family, they can't relate. So even if they want to help you, it's like nothing that they can do because they're just not in that situation. So even if they want to assist or serve, it's just mind blowing to them because they don't even know what it takes to even open up a business, let alone if the business is crashing and burning. So you're absolutely right.
Lonely at the top. The other one I wrote down when you said the solopreneur, like they don't have systems. So to other people, the other thing is so many of us, and I'm as guilty for this, are not willing to pay for professionals. We're trying to do things on the cheap all the time. And sometimes that is a detriment. My wife, bless her soul, just went through this. She hired a cousin to come in and fill in a role. And her cousin has no experience, no training, no nothing. And she's just like pulling her hair out to some extent because she's like, I have to teach, like this lady doesn't even know how to use a computer really well. You know what I mean? And she's like, I'm trying to teach her from day one. You can save on money and pay in time and lost clients and upsets, or you just pay for someone that already knows how to do it, right? And when you pay for people that are professionals, you build an A team. And that's really it. I just wanted to mention that because that was something you said.
And it's also cliche. I know it sounds cliche, but you're only as good as your team. You know what I mean? So if you have a team that's subpar, then your business becomes subpar because there's going to be so many things lacking, so many gaps, so many voids that need to be filled. So like you said, you might as well just do the right thing and pay for the best because you'll get the best results.
100% on all aspects. It's a weird situation. And you know what? School really fails people because school doesn't prepare anybody for any of this. People forget school is a business as much as any other business. So they fill your day with a bunch of crap that really doesn't. I mean, education is wonderful, but school is a different animal. And it's been shocking. I mean, I'm such a different person pre and post COVID in terms of how my eyes have been opened to the ways of the world. So, how do you currently approach hiring top talent and employee training and development within your organizations?
So for me, it's definitely about vetting. And it's also where you get that talent from. You mentioned earlier about, hiring a cousin or a friend. For me personally, unless they're just extremely qualified, I try to separate business from personal for many, many reasons.
Yeah.
But what I find is that a lot of times we'll hire people just because we know that they need a job or something like that
Yeah.
versus really genuinely being qualified. So again, I'm going to spend money, get on Indeed. I'm going to spend money and get on ZipRecruiter and find high quality. I'm going to work with recruiters, so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of my talent comes from staffing agencies. That's where so to answer the question, especially
Yeah.
for those that are listening and really trying to hone in, don't hire emotionally, hire for what you really need. But the point is, or the caveat to that is, a lot of us don't even know what we need. So
Yeah.
first you need to figure out what it is that you genuinely need so that
Yeah.
way you can fill in that void.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And it's so crazy. We talked about paying for professionals, and you said that you rely on staffing agencies. That you actually use professionals to help make sure that you're building a professional team for your professional operation.
Yes,
This is
sir.
crazy. That's so crazy. What a concept. No, I love it. I love it. I think that's because people don't even understand what the cost is of a mishire. They use this in sales, often, they sell money at a discount. How much would you be doing if this was fixed? Oh, I'd be doing 50K a year or 50K a month. Oh, what are you doing now? I'm doing 20K a month. Oh, so this problem's costing you 30 grand a month by not solving it. Okay, cool. Well, also when people look at it, what's the team you should be having? What's the team you got? What's the difference in earnings between the two? And not only that, but people don't realize how expensive it is for a mishire, which is, like you say, why so many people stay as a solopreneur. Because you hire the wrong person, you got to onboard them, you got to train them, then you got to take time to figure out if they're performing or not, and then you got to make the decision to pull the plug, and then you got to go find somebody new. But when you talk to some of the highest level entrepreneurs that are not in their business that work on it, they spend a ton of time on talent recruitment because that is such a huge part of this. Could you
For
speak to
sure.
that? Would you agree? Yeah.
I definitely agree wholeheartedly because again, I would hope that when you start a business, your goal is not to be like, oh, I'm going to be a solo person for life. I would think that people would get into business to one day acquire enough money where they can hire people and
Yeah.
then acquire enough money where they don't even have to, if they show up or not, the business
Yeah.
still runs, right?
Yeah.
So with that being said, when I start an entity, I like to start from the end, and reverse engineer, if that makes sense. So
Sure.
with that being said, even if you don't have the budget at this time, still write the vision and make it plain. Like write out your plan. What is your 1 year plan, your 5 year plan, so on and so forth? Because yes, like you said, if you invest in the wrong spots, that could take you out. The wrong employee, if that's your first hire and you hire your cousin or whomever just because it's cheap and that's your home girl or whatever the case may be, that could literally take you out in business, especially as fragile things are at this time. So you just want to be wise in those
Yeah.
decisions for sure.
Yeah, that's important, again. And if people knew better, they wouldn't be coming to you for a job. So you can't expect that much. That's why the SOPs and the trainings are so important
For sure.
because, people often get worried and scared, but you're paying to develop a skill set. And that skill set is how to achieve goals via myself and others. And success is a team sport. And so that's we've touched on it. And it's just such a mission critical thing is building the right team of the right people who can do it and figuring out what their goals for themselves are so you can try to align their role in your company with that so they're actually motivated to show up every day and get stuff done. And that's part of what makes it a complex thing. But you get paid in relation to the size of the problems that you solve. If you solve a small problem, like who's going to sit inside the store and make sure nobody steals stuff, that's a minimum wage problem. If the problem is where do I put this store so that way I have enough customers to, to have this much turnover a month, and what do I stock the shelves with? Like, that's a bigger problem. And then if the problem is how do I have a network of 300 of these and the logistics between it and deal with the different legal ramifications of being across state lines, that's a different problem. And so it's a different pay grade. And if you want to play small, then be small. That's okay. That's not, we need all shapes and sizes. So where do you see things going? So much is happening right now with technology and geopolitics.
I just see that those that stay consistent and also utilizing and leveraging the technologies, a lot of people fear it instead of embracing it and seeing how can I leverage these new AI and these new tools and technology in my business. So educating yourself and getting with like-minded individuals, I think that's where things are going, or at least need to be, to sustain, because there's nothing consistent but change, in life. So you just have to adjust, adapt, and overcome, whatever is, especially in entrepreneurship, full-time entrepreneurship. If you don't know how to, adjust when things come your way, you ain't gonna make it. So like I said, just to answer the question, you definitely don't want to just fear it or, oh, that's something new. We're not, stay old school. You know how some people are like, no, this is working. That could potentially be the downfall if you don't adjust to what's coming out.
Yeah, that's a real important thing as well. I'm biased because I'm an entrepreneur, but I feel like you'd said this before. You never want someone else to be in control of your lifestyle. Being an entrepreneur, it's just more real in the sense of I could have a job and I could be entitled to things. And then everybody's had a job where the employer stiffed them for pay or something like, not everybody, but it's just employer problems are prevalent too, getting working and then, and then all this sort of stuff. I just feel like it's just a smarter way to be. Especially, I think that's what created the middle class. Before it used to be kings and peasants. And then we had free markets, and free markets was small merchants solving problems for their neighbors for a price. And through that, we created the society that we have today. We eliminated child mortality like drastically compared to where it was. In the early 1900s, 36 to 42 was life expectancy. So we doubled, tripled life expectancy. We increased literacy. We spread democracy around the world, women's rights, all this progress. Even China had to adopt their own form of free market capitalism in order to be competitive. And it's all about enabling people to solve someone else's problem for a profit. And so I think it's an opportunity, and it's going to go to the builders. I think that for people like us, we're building and shaping the future because we live in the real world. It's not a world of ideas. When I go out my door, who's out there? What do they need help with? And who's going to pay me with what? I think about this all the time when I walk around. Everybody here has pockets, and everybody's got at least $1 in that pocket. But what they don't have is a reason to give it to me. Money everywhere. Every car that you see riding down the road took money to make it. Somebody bought it. All the houses, all the apartment complexes, all the streetlights, all this stuff was made with money, traded with somebody. And so the reality, when we're struggling in business, you almost need a mentor to help you. You don't know what you don't know because it's there. Like it's there. There's always opportunity. There's always difficulty. And that's where we have to come together, I think. I think that's super powerful. So for you, what are some of the most important habits that you have, whether they're daily, weekly, monthly? What are some of like your pillar habits?
So for me, I definitely pray and meditate just for mental mindset for sure. I do have a like private mastermind that I do like once a month. Well, at least we try to do it once a month if everybody's scheduled, but nonetheless, at least once a quarter where we come together. We not just brainstorm, but as a collective group. So it kind of solves the issue of, community. And also like when you're stuck, because like you said, when you're stuck, you just either A, you just don't know what you don't know, or B, because you're stuck, it's hard to think clearly to get out of that rut. So sometimes you need a colleague or someone who's been there and been in that situation to help get that brain spark, back flowing. So we do a mastermind once a month. I know that it may seem weird to say, but therapy, therapy as an entrepreneur for me is amazing, because again, there are people that love you and care about you, but because they're not in that position, they just cannot agree. There's nothing that they can do to help you. And so just having the therapy sessions is a way to just get it out, dump it out. And so those are some of the things that I would say, that I do personally.
I love that. Now, in terms of the business itself, the operating, what metrics are you keeping your finger on the pulse of?
KPIs.
And then it's great. You can look at the dashboard and be like, yeah, things are going bad. Things are going bad. Yeah.
For me personally, I think every mentor needs a mentor. So I do have active mentors that I engage with, especially in the tax space or the spaces that I play in. I want to make sure that I'm on pace, if that makes sense. I also have a group of colleagues. I try to have community because that's highly important. Having a community, especially of the same like-minded individuals, now you have someone to not just bounce ideas, but girl, what did you do this tax season? How was your tax season? So now you can look at metrics, so on and so forth. Staying tapped in. So a lot of times people get successful or get their version of success and get comfortable. But for me, it's like never getting comfortable, always knowing that there's something else that you can do, some other way that you can progress. Maybe you've satisfied this part, but maybe you need to add something or satisfy something else. So just keeping your ear to the streets, for the lack of better terms, and also polling your customers and your clients, because they're the best ones to tell you what's happening and not happening, or what they like and don't like, and just staying ahead of the curve.
Yeah, that is so important, that we talk about keeping your ear to the streets, market research, being in touch with your people. That is so. The best example of that is Blockbuster versus Netflix. Blockbuster was a $6 billion a year company. Okay, that's a B, folks. $6 billion a year. They could have hired any talent. They could have developed any technology. They had the opportunity to buy Netflix. We're like, nah, this thing's not of our interest. And then Netflix came out of nowhere and ran them into the ground. And they eventually went bankrupt. And it was because they got so preoccupied with trying to monetize what they had. They lost touch with the people. The mom that's been like the hairdresser that's been standing for 12 hours, cutting hair with her arms up. She doesn't want to go stand in an aisle trying to decide, paralysis by analysis, which movie do I pick? And then you get billed extra when you forget to bring it back. Like, this is such nonsense. And so they completely disconnected. They failed to innovate. They failed to be where people are. Some of that requires the entrepreneurial eye. I think it was Henry Ford. He said, if I asked people what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse. So you do need to do market research, but also at the same time, you have to be innovative and figure out, how do I provide a better solution for people? And I think that's a really powerful message. So you're on the line of two important things: taxes and technology, but you're also working with startups and established businesses trying to kind of digitize themselves. So I guess, again, what are you recommending to everybody?
To circle back, I recommend that you just get your house in order. And I say that lovingly because, like I said, a lot of times people will come to me and they just don't have anything. So if you have an LLC, great, but do you have a website? And as basic as some of these things may sound, especially to some of us that have been in business for quite some time, you'd be surprised how many people don't have a digital footprint. If I Google you right now, I cannot find you anywhere. You get what I mean? And there's no social media presence. They haven't done their taxes ever, but been collecting money off Cash App. So again, it's just realizing, like, in 2026, let's do business in real life. Like, let's do business for real. Let's make it legit. Yes, you're not going to get a tax refund anymore. It's okay. You know what I mean? You still want to have somebody skilled enough to help keep your books so you don't pay so much. The goal is definitely not to get a refund. So, so it's just, I guess for me and for what I see, is just cleaning it up and doing it the right way. And so that's the reason why for me, I've created some tools and some support with that, because a lot of people just don't know where to begin, or they're trying to take pieces of this and pieces of that. And what a lot of individuals don't realize until you actually get started is some of these mistakes are very costly. If you set up your LLC the wrong way or things of that nature, it could cost you thousands in taxes in the long run, or whatever the case may be, right? So rather than spinning your wheels or trying to figure it out or whatever the case, even like I said, you'd be surprised. Like, you make a costly mistake in the beginning, it could cost you the entire business because you just weren't ready for that type of blow. So for me, I think in 2026 and beyond, when we start a business, let's start it right the first time. Let's get it right the first time versus always having to come back and add to and put this piece and this, that, and the third, because it's hard to structure and build at the same time. Very hard. So
yeah. And especially as an owner, I think a lot of people, they get into business because they're good at what they do. And this stuff just really trips them up. And it just becomes obstacles later. Just trying to, just let me play ball, man. Just let me play ball. I don't need to worry about inflating the ball and making sure the net's the right height and waxing the, like all this other stuff. Just let me play ball. And that's part of where you need a team, I think, to come in and help fill those other gaps. So
for sure.
If people have questions, if they want to reach out, if they want to get your eye on something, what are some of the best ways for them to kind of connect?
That's a great question. So first things first, we do have a digital product. It's called Concept to Company. It is a resource for those that are looking to start a business, or you have a idea that you're trying to take to income. We help you step by step to make sure that your business is structured in a way that, you know, once you get income flowing in, you can actually be fundable, if that makes sense. So we have the Concept to Company, and how you can connect and learn more about that is by either connecting with me on social media at Connect with Miss Cat. So that's Connect, WITHMSCAT, Connect with Miss Cat on all socials, or you can go to my website, www.connectwithmisscat.com.
Catherine, this has been a great interview. I've got pages of notes. Some of this stuff was so important, and a lot of, like I said, I had to go back a couple of times because you said it, and I felt like people wouldn't understand the depth and like the pain behind some of these things. Like, you just say it as a simple sentence, like you need some systems, but the pain is like the iceberg behind that. Like that really ingrains that lesson into you. I wanted to make sure people got all that. Is there anything I haven't asked you that I should have asked you?
No, first of all, I just want to say yet again, it's been an honor and privilege to be here with you. I definitely appreciate the opportunity just to chit chat with you. It definitely has been insightful, and I hope that my realness, because I've, you know, been doing this, been there, done that. I just hope that resonated with someone. So no, if at this point, hopefully the conversation have led them to check out further, and they can just connect with me on social and find out more. And if they're ready to start a business or looking to restructure or just get more insight, they can do so as well. If they want to check out just some more realness from me, I do have a podcast. It's called Both Sides of the Check, where we talk about the other side of entrepreneurship. So, you know, like I said, socials will make it look so glitzy and glamorous. But on our podcast, we talk to entrepreneurs just talking about the ups and downs and the real side of entrepreneurship. So always feel free to tap in there as well.
I love that. And so that's the podcast. Is called Both Sides of the Check. Again, you can find it if you search for Miss Cat. Catherine, it's been an honor and a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming and sharing with us. I know you got your own direct reports, your own companies, your own clients, your own mastermind, your own podcast. Thank you for coming and sharing with my audience and I, so we could all do better.
Thank you.